Well, hello, it's the Great Southern Ancient Miniature Man here, and I've got a video about the Etruscans. The Etruscan miniatures, particularly 28mm, and I'll feature a little bit about Agema's new range, as well as the extensive Aventine range, and then we've also got some interesting new developments from Footsore miniatures. But before getting into all that, I just want to give you a little bit of background about the Etruscan civilization, and I've got to admit I was quite ignorant about them up until the recent Kickstarter of the Agema Etruscans sort of piqued my interest. So the little bit that I've learned since then, obviously they came from Etruria, north of Latium, south of the Cisalpine Gauls, in modern-day Tuscany. Their civilization really predated that of anything significant in Latium, certainly the Romans, and they had quite sophisticated city-states well before Rome, was any significant city on the banks of the Tiber. Their language was quite different, quite unique, non-Indo-European language group, which is fascinating in itself and raised a lot of speculation as to perhaps their racial origins. And unfortunately, after the incorporation into the Roman Empire, their language really died out in early AD. They had many technologies which were again incorporated into the Roman culture and civilization, really, and to the extent that we often associate them with the Romans. So, for example, they were early builders of aqueducts. They had extensive road networks when Rome, as I say, was a bunch of mud huts, really. The tradition of the triumph, which we associate with the Romans, was actually an Etruscan invention. And also mass sporting events, which became very popular through the Romans, originated really in Etruria, and obviously that in many ways has been passed down to many modern civilizations today through the Roman influence. In some ways, they were before their times. They certainly had great respect for women, and women's rights were much greater there than in the Roman world. For example, women could own property, could attend feasts, could drink alcohol with men. And likewise, the slave population were generally treated with much more respect and humanity than in most other ancient civilizations. Their biggest downfall perhaps was the fact that they were never terribly united, and they existed in city-states much like the Greeks, and often spent as much energy fighting each other as they did against external threats. So ultimately, once the Gauls became a major threat from the north and the Romans from the south, they were eventually eaten up really by the expanding Roman Empire. So moving on to the miniatures, as I say, the ranges that are perhaps best represented would be the Aventine range, which has been around for quite some time, and the new kickstarted Agema range of miniatures. So you've just seen a whole lot of slides there of the amazing Aventine ones, and you can judge for yourself, but I think they're lovely miniatures, and they have a particular style to them, really, which you either like or you don't. The features are very prominent, so it makes it very easy to paint, and they look fantastic. The only thing that I find, they kind of have this sort of cartoony appearance with very prominent facial features and significantly large toes, a little bit of a stumpy kind of appearance to them. So it's very much a personal taste. The Etruscan troops, very interesting in their diversity. They started most recognisably as the Villanovan culture, which had these fairly characteristic sharp pointy helmets. Then they were heavily influenced by the Greeks, so hoplites became one of their major troop types. And they had these fairly characteristic rectangular shields as shown there. And the Etruscan Axemen became very iconic and recognisable units in the Etruscan army Gradually they morphed into a more Roman style and ultimately had Hastati and Principes and Triarii, much like the Roman army did, and then ultimately functioned as legionaries in the Roman army. Their colour scheme was interesting. A lot of the wall frescoes in Etruscan tombs show predominantly white, blue, and this light blue, and red as their most common colours. So certainly the light blue and white give a nice contrast to the more deep red of the Romans and the predominantly green of the Celtic or Gauls to the north. And the ones I'll show you later that I've painted up, I've done in that colour scheme, and I think they work quite nicely. Right, you can see we're into the Agema miniatures now, and these are the new metal ones created from their Kickstarter and haven't been officially released on their general web page yet, but I gather that's going to happen quite soon, as of middle of November 2021, that is now. They're very different to the Aventine in that their features are much less prominent. They tend to have a sort of taller, skinnier appearance, although the actual height of the figures is almost identical. They have quite a nice range, different types, the three troop types, the Hastati-like, the Principe and the Triarii, although they're slightly different names to them. They have the Axemen, which unfortunately I haven't been able to get hold of, but I'm hoping to get some of them at a later date, and some really nice character figures. One great idea from Agema is to release a separate set of heads for the Etruscans. And they've got a set of noble heads and a set of commoners' heads. So the idea was you could use them with their existing plastic miniatures, which were originally both Carthaginian and Roman, and you can fit the new heads on them to make it a little bit more economical to build a significant size Etruscan army. So I think that's a great idea. And in the same vein, we have an interesting development from Footsore Miniatures, whereby they are making a set of Etruscan heads, plastic heads, to go with Victrix figures. So last correspondence with them, they were hoping to get them out by sort of Christmas 2021. And looking at their website, they do have some other heads also for Victrix figures for other Greeks and for Illyrians. Fairly expensive per item, per head, like over 50p per head, which kind of is more than the actual plastic figure from a Victrix or a Agema for the entire figure. But anyway, I guess they're such specialty things that they may well be something you're interested in. So there's some pictures of them there as well. And then these guys are my Aventine heavy Etruscan sort of legionaries. And I really like them. I think they're great. I've used obviously that blue and white colour scheme quite extensively here, and I think it works quite nicely. And as I said, it really contrasts well with the Romans to set them apart. Here they come again. Right, here's my Etruscan Axemen, which I've kit bashed a bit. I've not been able to get hold of the Agema ones as yet. I've made these out of a mixture of Victrix, Greek hoplites, some old components from, I think it was the Saxon kit from Gripping Beast, and I custom made that square shield. So these are okay for the time being, but I'm still looking forward to getting the Agema version. So there we go, that's my review of the Etruscans. So interesting culture, ancient civilization, quite a variety of different troop types, and very colourful different uniforms. So I think there's a lot to like about them. Also, there's a very well established range from Aventine, a growing range from Agema, and that addition of the new heads from Footsore, which will add a lot of variety to sort of mix and match with the existing huge range of Victrix ones. So heaps of stuff to make already and to look forward to in the future. Before I sign off, one more letter has come in from a fan. This is from Susulu Bang Bang Y from Jakarta. He writes in, he says, Kamu gila, miniature man. He says, mengapa bukan kompassus untuk membungan? Which I gather means, why are you not making the compassus, that is the sort of elite Indonesian military figures? So, way out of my time zone. Thank you for that, SBY, and thanks for your interest, but I think I'll be sticking with the ancient figures for now. So as ever, like, subscribe, bell button, save the world. Have a nice day. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.